Hello everyone, welcome back to Humans of Pharma, where we bring you inspiring conversations with leaders who are shaping the future of healthcare and also pharmaceuticals. I'm your host Nikita Gudise from Pharmastate Academy. Today I have the privilege of introducing someone whose journey reflects leadership, preservations and passion for advancing medical affairs profession. We are honored to welcome Dr. Samuel Dyer, sir, MD, PhD, CEO of Medical Science Liaison Society, a globally recognized leader in medical affairs and the MLC profession. With over 26 years of experience across leading pharmaceutical and biotechnology organizations, Dr. Samuel has played a significant role in advancing medical affairs globally and has led terms across more than 60 countries. He is not only a physician, educator, author, and mentor who has dedicated his career to developing healthcare professionals and strengthening MSL community worldwide. Today, we'll be discussing his remarkable career journey, the evolution of medical affairs, leadership lessons, the growing roles of AI in healthcare, and the experience that have shaped his success. Dr. Samuel, it's a pleasure to have you with us in the Humans of Pharma. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, sir. I came to know that you have completed 31 years medical school after 31 years of journey. So, to begin with, completing medical school after a 31-year journey is truly extraordinary. What kept you to moving forward during that time? What key lessons can professionals take away from your story of resilience and also persistence?
Yeah, thank you very much again for having me. And I my journey is certainly not what you would call typical. I first started medical school 31 years ago with, frankly, the goal of becoming a physician. However, unfortunately, due to financial hardship and a family tragedy involving my mother's illness and subsequent death, I had no choice to withdraw. And it was a brutal reality. In fact, it was probably the most difficult decision of my life and really completely changed the direction of my career. So, my desire to pursue medicine was inspired in part by the physicians who cared for my mother during her own illness. However, after her passing, the financial challenges and the realities followed. Continuing medical school was simply not possible. So at that point, I found a new path, but I had no idea where it would lead. So over time, I continued my education, earning a master's degree in biology, and then later a PhD in health sciences. And I eventually discovered the pharmaceutical industry and specifically the medical science liaison profession, which became the foundation of this remarkable journey I've had. And so I progressed from an MSL to MSL leadership and then, executive medical affairs positions, and had the awesome opportunity to live and work in 11 different countries, leading MSL operations, as you had mentioned, in more than 60 countries. But despite all of that, building a successful global career, certainly earning advanced degrees, contributing to the profession, and maybe even in some ways helping shape patient care, I never stopped thinking about finishing my MD. It always bothered me. So what kept me motivated was knowing that the dream never sort of disappeared. And it was never about career advancement. I mean, I didn't do it to advance my career or adding another credential. It was about completing something that was deeply personal, that I had started decades early. It just always bothered me. And so the lesson I hope that others take away from this is that, your goals, frankly, don't have expiration dates. right? Life may force you to take a different route, but a delay does not have to become a defeat. It certainly wasn't going to defeat me. It was just a delay in satisfaction. And I went back to medical school for pure self-satisfaction. I did it only for me. I knew I was never going to practice medicine. I wanted to get the degree, hang it on the wall, and go home. I did it for pure self-satisfaction. So if something truly matters to you, go get it. Put your head down, go to work, keep moving forward, even if the journey takes you far more than originally planned, like in my case, 31 years.
Yeah, that's incredibly inspiring, sir. Your story, like your journey, is so powerful reminder that a lifelong learning and also can overcome the way you overcome your long-term challenges also connects with my a lot of audience and the young generation. So thank you for sharing your experience and your challenges, sir.
You're welcome.
And in 2024, you achieved a long held goal by earning your MD after a journey that spanned more than 3 decades. What kept you too motivated, and what does the achievement mean to you personally?
It means everything, and it changed me completely. And certainly may not be immediate evident. Throughout my now 26 years in the MSL and medical affairs space, I've built a very successful career. Again, earning advanced degrees and collaborating closely with top physicians, being able to contribute to scientific knowledge and having the opportunity to, influence healthcare. I also transitioned out of the medical or pharmaceutical industry to lead the Medical Science Liaison Society, which some of the audience may know is the only professional organization dedicated to advancing the global MSL profession. And also during that time, I've had the opportunity to train MSL teams from more than 85 companies in 20 countries. I've authored 3 books. I've had the opportunity to write the foreword for another book. One of my books became an Amazon #1 best-selling book. So all of that, like, oh, you've achieved so much. Yet, despite all of that, something was missing, as I alluded to earlier. So, despite all those accomplishments, not finishing my MD remained very deeply personal regret. And I never stopped thinking about it. My wife, I've been married now for almost 20 years, and the entire time I've known my wife, she's heard me complain about this and be bothered by this, right? So the motivation came from wanting to really complete something that just felt like it was unfinished for reasons beyond my control. So earning my MD finally in 2024 was incredibly meaningful because it represented the completion of a journey that began more than 3 decades earlier. And it was about professional validation. And by that point, I had already achieved more than I'd ever imagined in my career. Instead, it was about fulfillment and being able to look back wondering, what if? And I did not want what if to be a question for the rest of my life. So the experience reinforced a belief that I often share with others, right? Is that success is not defined how quickly you're going to achieve a goal. Sometimes the most meaningful accomplishments, at least from my experience, are the ones that require the greatest perseverance, no matter how much time passes. If a goal remains important, again, put your head down, go get it. And I'll leave this with, one of the things that has been a driver for me. The first page of my master's thesis, the first page of my PhD dissertation, the very first page of the first book I published, first page of the second book, first page of the third book, as well as a quote that I gave during commencement address when I graduated from medical school. I was very fortunate that the school actually asked me to come back and deliver part of the commencement address. Part of my commencement address was a quote that has been on the first pages of all these documents, been in a frame on my desk in my office for more than 30 years. And it's this. It's the definition of perseverance. And it's this: the difference between successful people and others is not a lack of skill, not a lack of knowledge, but merely a lack of will. You want it? Go get it. That was my driver.
Okay, what a remarkable achievement, sir. And your testament, your dedication. I'm sure many of our listeners will find encouragement through your journey and through your words. So, moving forward, for students and professionals hearing about the role for the first time, how would you explain the role of medical science liaison and why has it become such an critical function in today's pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah. So first of all, let's define what is an MSL. So a medical science liaison, or the acronym MSL, is a highly specialized role that works directly within the medical affairs department of a pharmaceutical, biotechnology, medical device, medical diagnostic, CRO, or other healthcare companies. So today you will see MSLs employed throughout all of those company types. I firmly believe that I believe in the KISS method of communication. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So KISS method for defining what is an MSL. I think we have to talk about the primary purpose of an MSL. The primary purpose of an MSL is to help KOLs and other HCPs, healthcare professionals, make more informed clinical decisions. So if you think about what the role is, that's your job. You're going out and speaking to physicians, and through scientific data, through other resources, you're helping them make more informed clinical decisions. So MSLs really serve as this bridge between science and clinical practice. They engage with experts, they discuss the emerging data, they gather insights from the field, they support research initiatives, they help to ensure the voice of HCPs and other KOLs reach the organization. The role has become increasingly important because, frankly, medicine has become much more complex. So you think about new therapies or biomarkers or precision medicine, are all rapidly evolving and require trained scientific professionals who can have these peer-to-peer discussions. However, I'd say the primary reason for the role has become so critical today is that KOLs and other HCPs view MSLs as trusted and valuable resources of medical and clinical information. So they rely on MSLs to help them with current and evolving science to provide very objective scientific exchange. So this is exactly the value that MSLs create and why the role has become so critically important to the success of products.
Okay, that's a very insightful explanation, sir. You are really highlighted why the MSL role and has become such an vital bridge between science, healthcare professionals, and also about the like how in the pharmaceutical it works. We'll go with another question. You founded the Medical Science Liaison Society, the world's first non-profit organization exclusively focused on focused on MSL and how it works and related to medical affairs, right? So, what is the gap in the industry where you are trying to solve at this point and at this time?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was living in Paris, France, at the time in 2008, and I was frustrated. When I founded the MSL Society, I did so with several other MSL and medical affairs leaders who we all shared a common vision, if you will, of advancing the profession. And at the time, there was no professional organization specifically for MSLs or medical affairs. The role was growing rapidly, but there were no global standards, no dedicated certification, no specialized conferences, and very limited career development resources. So many MSLs felt isolated because they were often the only person performing that role in a geography, right, or in a therapeutic area. So our primary goal was to create unique resources, best practices, professional development, and opportunities that would help MSLs and MSL leaders excel in their careers. And we also wanted to provide and build a professional community that could elevate the profession, establish standards, provide education, and connect MSLs around the world. So, what started with this idea uh, over French wine one night in Paris, that is a true story. It sounds like, oh, but as you probably a lot of bad decisions are made, but that is a true story. Has grown now into a global community serving professionals in more than 105 countries. So that's where we are today.
It's fascinating to hear how identifying a gap in the industry led to creation of something that had such a global impact now. I'm moving with another question here. Today, the society serves professionals across more than 100 countries. What were some of the biggest challenges in building a truly global MSL community?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest challenges, and anybody who's done the career and been involved in the profession realizes that there is no one universal approach to the role. Although I always say an MSL is an MSL is an MSL. What we do know is that consistently the activities of an MSL and the competencies of an MSL are very consistent, whether that's in India, United States, or any other country. Medical affairs in the US can look very different than medical affairs in India, Japan, Germany, Australia, wherever. Healthcare systems, right? Regulations, cultural expectations, and even communication styles vary significantly. The key was listening. Instead of trying to force or export one model globally, we focused on understanding regional needs while maintaining common professional standards. So one of the major benefits of the Medical Science Liaison Society has been our commitment to global research. And in fact, to date, we have now conducted and published more than 250 global surveys on every aspect of field medical affairs. These surveys provide unique insights into medical affairs around the world. They also allow us to identify things like trends and benchmark practices, share evidence around best practices. And the knowledge gained from this research has helped the global MSL community while still respecting those regional differences. So I think what surprised me the most is how similar MSLs are regardless of geography or location. So again, whether somebody works in Mumbai or Miami, where I'm based, or Madrid, they encounter many of the same challenges and the same and share the same commitment to the profession and to ultimately patient care.
Telling is connecting with many of our students, and it was nice sharing your experience with us. And building a worldwide professional community is not an joke. Thank you for sharing some of the lessons learned along with your journey. So, well, going with another questions here. One of the Most and significant contributions was developing first MSL board certificate. Why was professional certificate important for advancing the credibility of MSL profession?
Yeah, and I just want to correct a word that you used because it is often misused, and it's a very important distinction. You had mentioned the word certificate. So what we're talking about is a certification. There's a key distinction between those two words, right?
Yeah,
So international standards, and I'm not calling you out, but I think it's important for the
yeah,
audience to understand that. So I think we're fine. I mean, I think that correction is important because it's so common. So I'll leave that
yeah,
up to you and the editors.
yeah,
But let me address that. As the profession matures, uh, they need to establish standards, right? So you think about to be a board certified neurologist, right? Physicians have board certification, pharmacists have board certification, many other healthcare professions also have formal mechanisms for demonstrating competency. The MSL profession has grown tremendously, and but yet there was no independent certification process focused specifically on the knowledge competencies required to be successful in the role. So developing the MSLBC or the Medical Science Liaison Board certification was frankly a huge, significant, financially burdensome endeavor. We wanted the certification to be created by the profession for the profession. And to accomplish that, we brought together 19 experienced MSL leaders from across the country for an intensive 2 day meeting. Their task was to define very difficultly, hey, what is an MSL, right? And what are those core competencies that everybody should be required? And also determine what knowledge areas that should be assessed. Once that foundational work was completed, we then organized a second in-person meeting involving 22 other MSL leaders. And over a 6 day period, 6 days, this group worked collaboratively to develop and write all the exam questions. So you can imagine in a room, 6 days, 22 MSL leaders writing exam questions. And it was a really tedious, time-consuming process. It required extensive discussion, debate, validation, consensus. But it was absolutely worth it because what ended up happening is we ensured the certification reflected real world expectations and industry standards. So the MSLBC certification helped establish a recognized benchmark for professional competency, and it provides individuals with a way to demonstrate their expertise while also helping employers identify professionals that have achieved a validated standard of excellence. So today, the MSLBC is highly recognized throughout the industry. Many pharma companies actually listed in their job description as a preferred credential. And so, most importantly, contributes to the long-term credibility and professionalization of the field. And so, just to clarify, when someone says certificate versus certification, a certificate is a training program. You earn a certificate of completion. A certification is an assessment, it's an exam. You want to be a board certified neurologist, you don't go and do a training program, you sit for an exam. You either pass that exam or not. And if you pass it, you earn the board certification. Same thing with this. So anybody who says that they offer a certification and all it is a training, run. That is not a certification. So I just want to clarify for anybody listening.
Okay, that's a valuable perspective and insight. Professional standards and certifications often play a key role in elevating an entire profession, sir. So, I want to ask you a question related to medical affairs. You have led medical affairs team across more than 60 countries. and multiple therapeutic areas. How can you see medical affairs evolve over the last 2 decades?
Yeah, it's a great question. And anybody listening to this, as I mentioned, I've been in the profession for 26 years. So don't do the math and be thinking about how old I am because time flies. All right, but 20 years ago, medical affairs was often viewed primarily as a support function. Today, medical affairs is very much a strategic function that influences things like research, clinical development, evidence generation, patient engagement, cooperative decision making. So I think MSLs have evolved from being primarily the scientific communicators to becoming much more, dare I say, strategic scientific partners who are able to generate actionable insights on identify unmet needs, and help shape the medical strategy for the product they're supporting. So the profession has become significantly more influential and sophisticated than it was when I first entered the profession.
We'll go with another question, sir, about the evolution of medical affairs only. What do you believe separates high performing medical affairs organization from average ones?
The highest performing medical affairs departments have a very clear understanding of why they exist. They're not focused just on activity, they're focused on impact. We recently published in a peer-reviewed medical journal the first ever global survey on measuring the impact of MSLs. It's very difficult, right? But the ones who are successful and really trying to understand what that impact is, they invest in developing their MSLs. They prioritize scientific excellence. They listen intently and carefully to HCPs and KOLs, and they use field insights to drive organizational and strategic decisions. Most importantly, they create a culture where curiosity and collaboration, and very importantly, patient-centered thinking guides decision making.
Okay, you had a front row seat to the transformation of medical affairs over the years, and also it's fascinating to hear how the functions continues and how the medical affairs has been evolved. We are glad to hear that from you, sir. So I wanna ask question about your book, basically. In your book, the Medical Science Liaison Career Guide, How to Break into Your First Role, you address one of the biggest challenge professionals face landing their first MSL position. What motivated you to write this book, and what gap were you hoping to fill for aspiring MSLs?
Yeah, I frankly I kept receiving the same questions over and over from aspiring MSLs around the world, and that was, things like, how do I get experience without being an MSL? Why am I not getting hired? What am I doing wrong? What are hiring managers actually looking for? So at the time, there was no comprehensive resource dedicated specifically for helping candidates break into their role. So I wrote the book to provide a practical, actionable guidance sort of based on real world experience to help aspiring MSLs avoid many of the same mistakes that I made and others made that prevent them from succeeding. So I'm very proud of the fact of that the Medical Science Liaison Career Guide, How to Break into Your First Role, became an Amazon #1 bestseller, has received more than 325 five-star reviews on Amazon from readers around the world. And more importantly, the book has helped hundreds of aspiring MSLs successfully break into the profession and launch rewarding careers. The book also received 3 international awards. But all of that, I think for me, uh, the impact is far more meaningful than any sales because it really reflects real world difference that the book has made in helping people achieve their career goals. And so one of the things that I did in the book was I interviewed 185 current MSL hiring managers, and I asked them 39 different questions. Things like, hey, what's the first thing that you look for on an applicant's CV? Like, what's most important, or what should they delete? Or when a applicant asks you this question, what are you really looking for? All of that is in the book. And I'm very proud of the fact that it's now helped so many people launch their careers.
Okay, thank you for sharing your words about your book, sir. And based on the insights from your book, what are the 3 most important steps candidates should take to successful transition into their first medical science liaison role?
Great question. I think first, understand the role thoroughly. What is an MSL? What do they do? Second, I think build and leverage your professional network. And I think third, learn how to communicate your transferable skills effectively. Most applicants have certainly enough relevant experience, maybe more than they realize. And I think the challenge is learning how to position that experience in a way that resonates with hiring managers. I always say this: the MSL role is not a scientific role. The MSL role is a communication role through science. So, what are managers looking for? Impeccable written and verbal communication skills.
Okay, thank you for sharing the most important things with our candidates or audience here, basically. And many talented healthcare life science professionals struggle to get interviews despite having strong scientific backgrounds. According to your book, what are the most common misconception candidates have about becoming an MSL? How can they overcome them?
Yeah, I think one misconception is that there's some secret formula or secret sauce for getting hired. Another is that only physicians can become MSLs, while, you know, doctoral credentials are uh, certainly the industry standard for most Western countries, absolutely in the US. Increasingly common, successful MSLs come from a variety of backgrounds. So you think about PharmDs, MDs, PhDs, other doctorate degrees, other advanced scientific backgrounds. A third misconception, I think, is that networking is optional. It's something that, oh, I might do just to go through the exercise. In reality, networking is often the most important factor in successfully transitioning to the profession. And I think applicants who understand the role, build relationships, and remain persistent dramatically improve their chances of breaking into the MSL profession. And I always say it this way too, that if you want to exponentially increase your chances of breaking into your first MSL role, it's this. If there is a secret, it's this. And I use secretly, and I'm being a bit facetious, right? And I'll give you the air quotes around the word secret, right? But here it is: only apply to positions in which you can absolutely position yourself as an expert in X, and X needs to match the job description. What does that mean? In reality, it's this: if you have a background in cardiovascular medicine, you have no business applying for a neurology MSL role. I can guarantee you your application will be deleted, right? So, what you need to do is be able to position yourself as somebody that matches what the needs are of the job description. If there are three critical words when applying for an MSL role, it's these three words: match, match, match.
Thank you for giving the ideas to our audience about applying related to their experience or related to this study. So we'll move with another question. Throughout your career, you have hired, mentored, trained hundreds of medical affairs professionals, right, sir? So what are the top qualities you look for when identify future leaders?
I think scientific expertise is critical. Absolutely. But it rarely separates great leaders. I hate to say it this way, but it's just true. Your PharmD, MD, PhD, other doctorate degree is almost like a high school diploma. Everybody's got it. That's not going to be it, right? That is not going to be it. That's going to be insulting for some people. They're like, holy crap, I'm so proud of my degree. Yeah, me too, right? I get that. I have two doctorate degrees. I'm proud of both of them. I get it, right? But in fact, I often say that as I said before, you know, the MSL role is not a scientific role, right? It's a communication role through science. And that critical distinction is grounded in the fact that while scientific knowledge is essential, it's the ability to communicate that knowledge effectively is what ultimately determines success. The perspective is supported by research that we've done at the MSL study. So, for example, in a global survey of 185 managers communicating that revealed communicating both written and verbal communication skills were identified as among the most critical competencies for success in the role. So the ability to build trust and engage in meaningful scientific dialogue and active listening and adjusting complex scientific information to different audiences. All of that is far more important than simply, oh, I've got an MD, right? So when identifying future leaders, I look for intellectual curiosity. I look for one of the most grossly under appreciated characteristics of an effective MSL: humility, right? Humility, emotional intelligence, resilience, absolutely emotional or exceptional communication skills, and a genuine desire to help others succeed. So I think the best leaders are lifelong leaders. They ask thoughtful questions. They set feedback. They in addition to seeking feedback, they adapt to change. So I think, and also, where are we at today in the era of AI and where we're going, right? Emotional intelligence has become far more important than ever. AI, you think about it, what AI can do, can help summarize data and analyze information and all those, but it can't replace the empathy and the relationship building piece and the influence. Those are uniquely human qualities that will increasingly differentiate top performing MSLs and MSL leaders and future leaders. So I think I would just finalize to say that leadership is less about authority and more about influence and service.
Yeah, leadership is an important topic. So those qualities you have highlighted will certainly resonate with aspiring professionals, and also many of our audience get to know about how the future leader should be, and it helps them to become. So I want to move with another question, sir. If a young professional from India wanted to build a successful career in medical affairs today, What roadmap would you commend and recommend?
Yeah, I think it's not much different, frankly, than from other regions. I think again, one, and I don't care, which country it is. We could, you can think about this for India, but frankly, it's applicable to anybody. But if you're in India, same thing, same answer. First, build a strong scientific foundation. You have to have it, right? So you think about PharmD, MD, PhD, other doctorate degrees, other advanced scientific. It literally just allows you to knock on the proverbial door, right? That is not what's going to separate you, but that's just, a minimum standard. Second, though, is develop impeccable communication and presentation skills. The ability to translate complex science into meaningful discussions is critical. I think third, actively networking within the MSL and medical affairs community, seek mentors and network with MSLs. Fourth, I think gain experience that demonstrates scientific engagement, education, research, and HCP interaction. And then I think finally, remain patient yet persistent. Right? I mentioned earlier the definition of perseverance. It's really important. Breaking into the medical affairs or the MSL profession specifically often takes time. So, but opportunities are available today, maybe more so than ever before, particularly in rapidly growing markets like India, right? India has exploded with the MSL role over the last few years. And so the ability to do that, and one of the things I always say about the MSL role, and India might be a really good example of that, is here's a great piece of advice for anybody listening, thinking about the MSL profession and thinking about interviewing. Don't be weird, right? Don't be weird. What does that mean? That you don't have the ability to carry on a conversation with anybody. So maybe you only love to talk about your science. The problem is with that is that as an MSL, you are going to be expected to not only communicate, but build relationships with people who are not scientists, right? They don't have the letters behind your name. They don't know the science. Frankly, they don't care about the science, but you must be a resource to those people as well. Who am I talking about? I don't know. Nurses, administrators, support staff in an office. So if you come across as weird, you come across as egotistical, you come across as somebody that doesn't want to talk to anybody but the doctor, I can guarantee you access to that physician and specifically, or more broadly rather, to that office will go down. So these are the things that I would be working on.
Okay, thank you for sharing such an guidance to our audience. I'm sure many young professional listening today will appreciate this kind of answers and they'll relate the answers with them. So I want to ask you questions about AI transforming medical affairs here. So your recent research explores the impact of artificial intelligence on medical affairs and also medical science liaisons. How do you see AI transforming the role over the next 5 years?
Yeah. Uh, you know, this is a tough one for a lot of people. Everybody's trying to absorb this and really understand what's happening. Let me get my crystal ball out and predict the future. And please note that my crystal ball is broken and doesn't work, meaning that I don't know anything more than anybody else, right? But we have done some research, and I can tell you what that reveals. And based on that and my observation, where we're at, it is very clear AI will and already has significantly enhanced the productivity of MSLs and more broadly medical affairs. routine tasks like things like literature reviews and content summarization and data analysis and information retrieval, all of that is going to become far more efficient with AI. What this will do is allow MSLs to spend less time processing information, more time engaging with HCPs, and also allow more generating of insights and solving complex scientific problems. So you'd mentioned and alluded to our research. We recently conducted the first ever global survey examining the use of artificial intelligence in medical affairs and published those results in a peer-reviewed medical journal. The findings of that demonstrated and revealed that both the growing adoption of AI and the very strong belief that it will play a, dare I say, transformative role in the future of the profession. Most respondents, what it would revealed is that most respondents expect AI to have a meaningful impact. And in fact, 74% reported that AI will be either highly impactful or impactful on medical affairs activities in the next few years ahead. So I view AI, frankly, as an amplifier of MSL capability rather than a replacement for scientific expertise. So I think the companies and the MSLs and others in medical affairs who learn to effectively integrate AI into their activities will be far more better positioned to deliver greater value, generate deeper insights, improve scientific engagement, and ultimately add more value.
AI is undoubtedly reshaping the industry, and it's exciting to hear your perspective on where the future is headed with the AI. So, I want to ask you another question about AI only. And there is a growing concern that AI may replace certain functions within pharmaceutical organizations. Do you see AI as a threat or an opportunity for medical affairs professionals?
Yeah, look, here's again my perspective. My crystal ball is whatever you're doing right now, listening to this, hang up, run for the hills. It's all over. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. What I do believe is that don't do a snapshot on that. Someone is going to, post that up on on some social media. Look, in seriousness, I see it primarily as an opportunity. I think every major technological advancement throughout human history, right, creates uncertainty. It's a little scary, but also creates a lot of new opportunities. You can see that historically, anywhere there's been a transformative or disruptive technology. Again, I think the MSLs and the medical affairs professionals who embrace AI will likely outperform those who ignore it. Again, I go back to our global research that supports this. While most respondents do not view AI as a threat to MSLs, about 58% believe that, they do recognize that AI will significantly change how the job is performed. Rather than replacing MSLs, I think AI is expected to augment the capabilities of MSLs, probably automate a lot of routine tasks, which then what? Allows them to focus more on high value activities, such as what? Engaging with KOLs or gathering insights or other strategic decision making. So I think the aspects of the MSL role that are most difficult to automate are exactly and precisely the areas where MSLs create the greatest value. That includes building trust, maintaining and building value-added relationships with KOLs, scientific judgment, emotional intelligence, and understanding the nuances behind what KOLs are really saying. So everything I just mentioned are fundamentally human capabilities. So as of this recording, and I won't mention the timestamp because we want this to age well, right? But as of this recording, right, early in the morning where I'm at in Miami, I haven't checked the internet today, but as of today, AI cannot do these things, right? So that's what I think is going to happen.
That's a balanced perspective, sir. So, I want to ask you about the question related to AI only. What digital and AI related skills should current and future MSLs begin developing right now to remain relevant?
Yeah, you look, I think you got to get real comfortable with using AI to increase efficiency and support decision making. They should understand prompt engineering and things like data interpretation and digital engagement strategies, AI assisted science, all of those things. But I think equally important, they should develop the ability to critically evaluate AI generated outputs. As we all know, anybody who's ever used AI, sometimes it makes crap up. Sometimes it's just not true. But if you don't have the ability to at least have a foundation to identify what is garbage or what is affectionately referred to as AI slop, right? You're going to be left behind. So knowing when AI is wrong may become just as important as knowing when it's right. So I think the future belongs to professionals who combine the scientific expertise, the critical evaluation, human judgment, and AI literacy.
Okay, that's a powerful vision, sir. A meaningful legacy to leave for our future generations of medical affairs and professionals. Having worked across the United States, Europe, Australia, Asia, and other regions, what difference have you observed in how medical affairs operates globally?
Yeah, it has been probably one of the most fascinating, frustrating, fun, rewarding aspects of my career is to have the opportunity, it has been the opportunity to work with medical affairs teams around the world in multiple countries. I think while the core mission of medical affairs remains very consistent globally, the way it's executed can vary significantly depending on a region. Many of those differences rather are driven by healthcare systems, regulatory environments, reimbursement models, cultural expectations, and frankly, even the maturity of the medical affairs function within a particular market. So, for example, in some countries, medical affairs plays a highly strategic role in things like evidence generation and decision making, while in others, the function is still evolving and defining its influence within broader organization. And you think about, a big difference in regulatory environment of, say, the United States and the Food and Drug Administration versus maybe Medicines Australia and Australia or the EMEA in Europe, but also the activities of MSLs. So I've observed many of these meaningful differences in how KOLs prefer to engage. So, for example, communication styles and relationship building expectations, approaches to scientific exchange, and even attitudes for collaboration can vary considerably from one region to another. So understanding and respecting those differences becomes really critical. And again, I compare the United States to, frankly, the rest of the world. The MSL role originated in the United States in 1967. And in some regions of the world, the MSL role is very new. So what does that mean? The MSL role has been around for, more than 60 years, right? We're going on 60 years, and so that time has allowed the role to mature and how we use it, and it's just very different. So at the same time, what has impressed me though is how similar medical affairs are regardless of geography. So whether I'm working with MSLs in India, Germany, Singapore, the US, what's so cool is I consistently see and observe the same passion for science, the same commitment for patients, and the same desire to create value for KOLs and HCPs. And I always say this: if you are a MSL or working in medical affairs anywhere in the world, you're a science nerd. We're all science nerds, right? And so that passion comes across, and it's really cool. So I think in many ways, science is very much a universal language. While healthcare and regulatory environments differ, the mission remains the same: advancing patient care through meaningful scientific exchange.
Okay, having worked across so many regions, your global perspective provides unique lens on how medical affairs continues to develop and how it is working around the world. You authored and also developed global standards, taught students, and built a profession-wide community. What legacy would you like to leave for the next generation of medical affairs professionals?
Yeah, I think that uh, I'd like to be remembered as someone who helped elevate and professionalize the MSL profession and more broadly medical affairs. When I first entered the field, there were very few resources available for MSLs. There were no global standards. There was no board certification, no dedicated professional society. There were no books on how to break into the MSL profession. And so limited opportunities for professional development also didn't exist. So over the years, I've been fortunate to work with many outstanding and really smart medical affairs leaders to help change that. One of the accomplishments that I'm very proud of is, again, we talked about this, but is helping hundreds of MSLs successfully break into the profession and having the opportunity to train MSL teams. I can get the last count, 87 companies and MSL teams in 22 countries. So seeing individuals achieve career goals they once thought were out of reach, or watching organizations strengthen medical affairs capabilities has been incredibly rewarding. If future generations enter the profession with stronger standards, better training, greater recognition, and more opportunities than when I started, I would consider that meaningful legacy. One of the other things that we started with the MSL Society is the first ever MSL of the Year awards, and that is now available around the world for MSLs all over the world. So that recognition is important. But I think more importantly, I hope I helped create a culture of collaboration and service. One of the things I'm most proud of seeing is experienced professionals invest in mentoring and supporting the next generation. The growth of our profession is by helping others succeed. And I'll say this: the guiding principle and tenet behind creating the MSL Society was and continues to be a very simple philosophy: do the right thing and pay it forward. And I think that belief has been the foundation of my work and my career and remains primarily my driver today. I believe that when we help others succeed, share knowledge, and act with integrity, we strengthen not only individual careers, but the entire profession. So ultimately, maybe that was a longer answer than you wanted, but I think ultimately, I hope my legacy is not measured by the programs I created, the books I wrote, or the certifications I helped develop. I hope it's measured by the people whose careers, confidence, and opportunities were positively impacted along the way.
Okay, that's a powerful vision, sir, and a meaningful legacy to leave our future generation of medical affairs professionals. And this would be connecting with our audience also. And finally, we have two questions. What is one piece of advice you wish someone had given you at the beginning of your career? Like when are your young self and you wanna have some guidance, like with your siblings or with your family, what are the advice you wanna have, like you wanna expect
Yeah.
from them?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something you had said, and I think it's important for the audience to know this. You had mentioned about your young self. I just want to clarify, I'm still young. Anyway, just throw that out there. I just want to throw that out there. Look, in seriousness, I think it's, do not compare your timeline to anyone else, right? Put blinders on, put your head down, and go to work. If someone had told me early in my career that I would live in 11 countries, lead medical affairs teams and operations at over 60 countries, found the Medical Science Liaison Society, publish books, write and publish over 80 articles, earn a PhD, and eventually return and complete a medical school at 50 years old after 31 years, I would have thought that you'd lost your mind, right? But what we do know, and I think most people will tell you in their career, life and career rarely develops and unfolds according to your plan. There's a quote, and I go back to that quote that I had mentioned earlier, that, the difference between successful people and others. It, you know, to me, that definition really defines what you need to do to be successful. Perseverance has been one of the driving forces in my career. And I think it's really critical that it's a reminder that success often is less about talent and timing and more about perseverance, persistence, resilience, and this willingness to keep forward and or keep moving forward when there's obstacles in your way or when the path becomes difficult. I look back at my own career and I freely acknowledge that I was definitely not um, the most talented student. Certainly didn't get the best grades. Wasn't the top student in most classes. But what I had more than anything else was I was very driven. So the advice I would give to my younger self, and when I'm saying younger, I'm talking about last year, because again, I want to clarify for everybody, I consider myself younger self, is simple. Focus on growth, stay curious, invest in relationships, and keep moving forward, right? It's you do not need to have every single step mapped out. Sometimes the opportunities that shape our life and our career are the ones that you never anticipated. I was to the point I never thought that I would go back to medical school the way I did. And it just worked out. So I think when things do happen, according to your timeline, or when things do not happen, rather, according to your timeline, I think it's critical to remember that perseverance is going to be typically far more important than perfection. So that's what I would tell my earlier self.
That's a wonderful advice. And I think of many of our listeners, regardless of where they are in their careers, can benefit from your insights and from your words. And Dr. Samuel, sir, has been incredibly insightful conversation. Before we wrap up, I would like to ask one final question that we ask all our guests on humans of pharma. Anything like what does being human in pharma mean to you? What you wanna tell?
It's a great question. When I think about this and I think about the title of the show, and what you guys are trying to achieve, I think being human in pharma, uh, and especially from the MSL perspective, means remembering that behind every clinical trial, every publication, every data point, every discussion with a KOL is a patient whose life may be impacted by your work. It does matter. It means recognizing that science and empathy are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the best physicians and the best KOLs and other HCPs and medical affairs leaders understand that both are essential. So I think being human also means listening. Throughout my career, some of the most valuable lessons that I've learned have come from patients, caregivers, physicians, nurses, and colleagues who shared that their experiences and perspectives. So I think taking the time to truly listen helps us make better decisions and ultimately serve patients more effectively. So I think for me, being human in pharma means never losing sight of why we do the work that we do in the first place. So I think at the end of the day, our purpose is not simply to develop medicines and generate evidence. Our purpose is to improve and extend human lives. So when we keep that mission at the center of what we do, everything else becomes more meaningful.
Okay, thank you for sharing your valuable insights, sir, with us. And I'm pleasure that I hosted you today. And thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your words with us and also sharing your insights to our audience. On behalf of entire Humans of Pharma team, thank you once again for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for sharing your journey, your insights, your vision for the future of medical affairs. It's been a privilege having you on Humans of Pharma, and we truly appreciate your time, sir. And you have brought some value to our audience today, and we wish you continuous success all your future. And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another inspiring conversation from the world of humans of pharma. So, until then, stay curious, stay inspired, keep learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.